Hello, my friends. This is going to be a very special edition of this program. As you can see, there's a lot of things that have changed. I am at my father's house in Florida, and there's a good excuse for that. And I'll also say that this is a little different, and I probably shouldn't have done. This is the crossroads of living up to your responsibilities, and of and doing things against your better judgment. So I early on said that I want to do this show every week and I don't want to miss a week and I try to stay on top of it. And I try to do it on Sunday nights, which is tonight. Um, so today I made the thumbnail and I got everything kind of ready. And I said, well, when you do this, when you set up the shows, it says, you can do it now or you can put it off in the future. So usually when I build the show, I'm ready to go on within 10 or 15 minutes. Well, I did this in the morning because there's a reason why I'm in Florida, and I'm going to explain that in a minute. But I had a lot of things to do. So, like, in between, like, the things I had to do, I was like, well, I might as well set up the show when I have a chance. So I built the thumbnail. I hope you really enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty funny. And put the show together. But I wasn't ready to go on. And I didn't want people like sitting on YouTube waiting for me to go on. So I decided to wait till about now, which is right about 8 o'clock. Yeah, it's 8:08 Eastern time, 7 o'clock, 7:08 where I live where I normally live, which is in Tennessee. Uh, I put it off until 8 o'clock. Now I've been drinking, and it's going to be very apparent as we go through this that I've had a few whiskeys. There's also a good, yes, I'm an alcoholic, but there's also good reason for it. So I will get through it real quick and then we'll get on to the matter. So my father, now let me close this door. Uh, my father is in hospice, and which is kind of an interesting thing because he hasn't given up on life. In fact, I think he's doing a lot better since he's come home from the hospital. He's just given up on being at a hospital and being poked at and all the therapy and all the things he doesn't want. He wants to sit in his chair. He wants to watch Fox News. By the way, I don't watch it. We're I'm the black sheep of my family. I'll just say it right now. My entire family, they're all like huge Republican conservatives. I love them. I'm a moderate liberal. Don't hate me if you're not, because I love everybody. I don't care. I don't care who you vote for. I don't care who you pray to. I don't care who you sleep with, just as long as we can be friends. That's all I care about. And Anyway, my dad's in hospice, but that doesn't mean he's given up on life. It just means I'm done with the treatment. I just want to come home and enjoy myself, have a whiskey. My sister from Michigan, Michonne, is down here. My big sister, who I haven't spent time like this with since I was a child. And I came down from Nashville. I have a job outside of writing. It's a temporary job. They're very kind, though. They understand it's a pilot study. Um, and they're like, you go down, do what you need to do. So I'm like, I'm going to be down here and I'm going to be, you know, refreshing my dad's scotch and water and his THC pills until he no longer needs me to do that. So that's what I'm doing here. My dad uh, has a set time, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, is cocktail hour. And there's nothing in the world that's going to stop me right now from I usually try to wait until at least, I don't drink every day. I drink maybe Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. That's usually when I'm with my girlfriend, Laura. But there's nothing going to stop me from having whiskey with my father. And since I started, there's no point in stopping. My sister's down here. We're all whiskey drinkers. My dad drinks scotch. My sister and I drink bourbon. I like old fashions. Michonne likes old fashions too, but she prefers. This is really weird. Now I've named this drink now. I've named it after her. It's a Michonne Maddock. It's whiskey uh, and grapefruit juice, which is weird because I had grapefruit juice with like vodka and gin, but never with brandy. I'm sorry, not brandy. Bourbon. We're both bourbon drinkers. My dad's more into scotch. So 5 o'clock came. I'm in Eastern time, so it's a little earlier than where I usually live. And we started drinking. Sean made a nice pasta, great pasta, like botte pasta with like a vodka, no vodka in it. I don't think there was, but with a vodka sauce and meat. And we had that for dinner. So I had a few whiskeys, and then I had some wine, and then I settled in because I said I was going to do this, and I'm going to do it. And you know, feeling cute. Maybe delete this later. Maybe I'll take this down because I'm going to make a fool out of myself. But I'm going to try not to. Part of the reason why I do this, multiple reasons. First of all, everything you see me do on social media is all about marketing. I'm constantly marketing myself, but also it's because I love you and I want to hang out. I want to know my friends, and this is my way of kind of like expressing myself in unscripted format. So you get to see a little bit of the real me. So much of the real me is that when my sister texted me on Friday morning, because I thought my father was not going to come home until Saturday. And I was in Nashville. Michonne flew down here from Detroit. And she said, I need you down here now. I said, okay. And I called my boss and I said, I got to go. She's fine. I had a client I had to go meet that day, called her. She's like, because I already told her, I said, we made an appointment. I said, I might have to race down to Florida to take care of my father. She said, I understand. Called her. She said, yeah, you go ahead, baby. You go ahead and take care of your father. So, so I woke up thinking I was going to spend the weekend, at least the weekend in Nashville. Here I am. There are worse places to be. Look at you can see the palm tree. I mean, it's a painting, but it's a painting done by my dad's friend, Joni Roman. But that's a lanai. There's a pool, and there's plenty of booze and food, and actually in a kind of a weird way. And I hope to make full advantage of this. And I finally got around to it. I got in Friday night, Saturday morning, about 1:30 in the morning. And Saturday was kind of crazy. Today, I got to writing. I listened to Stephen King's On Writing the whole way down. And what a great, I'll have to tell my friend Lloyd. And Lloyd, if you're hearing this, watching this later, acknowledge that I said this to you. Otherwise, I want to text you. But I know why you love Stephen King. I did too. I read him like in the 80s and 90s. And it's a great book. So if you're a writer, the first part of it is kind of like his kind of like a memoir of growing up. It takes you all the way through to his first big success, which is Carrie. And then he goes into the nuts and bolts about writing and the writing business. And I really like it. I regret that at the very end, I listened to the audiobook while I was driving. The last hour is his son, who I'm sure he loves very much, and I hope he does. But like the son, who has the worst voice ever, is a narrator, and he kind of takes over and talks about how his dad encouraged him to be a narrator, and then there's like an interview with his son with someone, and I wish the guy all the happiness and success in the world, but it's like, after I listened to like, over 10 hours of Stephen King talk about his struggle from like growing up from a single mother and being poor and then getting married and having to work at a laundromat to support his family and finally getting his break. It's kind of hard to hear his son, who, I'm sure is a great writer, probably is, probably better than me. But there's another, I will tell you this, I don't think he's a great narrator. And it's not for a lack of skill. I think it's just you're either born with a good voice or not. And when his son came on, it just felt like a guy, because Stephen King actually has a really pleasant voice to listen to. And then to hear his son afterwards, it's kind of, okay, I'm going to stop talking shit about other people. Okay. So his son's awesome. Stephen King's awesome. I love him. All right, let's get on to what we're talking about here. So even though it's a very tough time in my life, it was a very great time of my life. I got on a podcast that I really wanted to be on, and I'll tell you the story a little bit. It was Rock Paper Swords, and if you want to listen to the podcast, you can listen to it through like a traditional podcast provider like Spotify or iTunes, but they also put it up on their YouTube page. So what this is when I first started, I'm going to take you back because a lot of what this whole show is about is it's about my journey and how I gone from a guy who outside of Nashville. I mean, people knew me in Nashville because I was an on-air reporter, and I also have some friends because I lived all over the world. So I've had friends from all the different places. I've lived from not Lisbon, but Portugal to Japan. You know, I lived in Hungary for a while. I've lived in Ohio, in Detroit, in Salt Lake City, in Tennessee, and Florida. So I have friends from everywhere I've lived. But outside of that, going from no books ever published to where I am today, you know, it's a journey, and it's a journey I'm still on, and it's a journey I will always be on. Even if I'm the most famous writer in the world someday, I will still be on that journey. And there's a story I love. This story. It's about a 92-year-old Chilean cello player. And this guy had played all in the great concert halls all over the world. He was I don't know his name. I just know this story. It's a little bit apocryphal. By the way, I told my sister I said, if I'm live streaming, don't be shy. You can come out and you can interrupt. If you want to sit down and talk about books with me, absolutely. She's reading a fucking fantasy trilogy that her daughter. I'm like, when are you going to read one of my books? But I have this rule that my family and my friends don't have to read. You have to read. No, I'm sorry. My family and my friends don't have to read any of my books, but I'm always very delighted that. And she said, okay, well, maybe because I'm told that before I read the next great book of this great fantasy writer, I need to read something in between, like a palate cleaner. So she and her daughter might read Mexico, My Love. Because I told them, you might not like my other books. I mean, I think anybody would like any of my books, but most of my books are war books. But Mexico, My Love is very special. It's the main character is a woman. It's a love story. It's not a romance, but it's a love story. And the difference is a love story can be tragic, where romances always have to be a happy ending. There's no happy, but you know it because Mexico, My Love is a prequel to Rampage on the River. So anyway, I ramble, and that's why one of the reasons I did this. So it's the only place to come. It's a journey to go from being nobody and writing a book, especially if you're an independently published person. It's either a Cinderella story with the big publishers, or you're a nobody who builds your own base, your own readership. And I've done very well. Every book that I've written outperforms the last one, and because the further I go on, and I still have brand new people. By the way, if you're in the UK or the US, if you're in the US, 99 cents, my first book, my first novel, Rampage on the River. If you're in the UK, it's 99 pence. And the UK sale was going to be a little later, but I realized, oh my God, I'm on this big UK literary podcast. Why am I not running a special right now? Because there have been already people who listen to the podcast have reached out to me. They said, hey, I really enjoyed you on the podcast. Why am I not offering them a discount on my first book? I mean, that's like a lost opportunity there. So, you get so trapped into your patterns that you forget to think about the opportunities. And that's a big lesson in life, I think, is that, I've been saying this for years, you should always plan ahead, but you should always plan loosely enough so that you can pivot on contingencies and opportunities. And I realized, like, why am I not running specials on Rampage on the River in both the US and UK? Because I've just been on this big podcast that a lot of people who read my genre are fans of. So anyway, let's go back to this. So when you start off from nowhere and you're slowly, I mean, don't try to make $1 million. I mean, if you make $1 million in your first book, that's great, but that's a Cinderella story. In the beginning, you should be building up a readership, because what you want is not like one-time customers. You want someone to buy your book one, and because they loved it so much, they buy book two and book three and book four and book five. I'm up to 5 novels. I have 2 other books that are nonfiction. And so there's a lot of ways to do that. You build up a social media presence, which I feel I have, and I mean to a certain degree, not a big one, but I have over 3,000 followers on Facebook. I have 477 followers on YouTube, and I know a lot of them come from when I was doing guitar demos, and a lot of them was when I was a reporter in Nashville and I was posting my stories. But I have gotten some new ones since I started doing this live stream. But I got 477 there. It's not really big, but by the way, if you are watching, please give me a like, give me a subscription. It doesn't cost you anything. It just means if you subscribe, it just means if you go on YouTube, it's going to tell you, hey, Cody's got a new video. And what else? I don't know. Oh, join my email list. I have it's listed down below. And if you join my email list, the benefit, I'm not going to spam you. I'm not gonna sell it to other people, but I will tell you, like, when one of my book is at 99 pence or 99 cents, or if I'm going to be somewhere, or if I have a new book out, that's what it's for. And in fact, I put out an email today to my list about, hey, I've been on this podcast. If you're interested, take a listen. And if you want to hear the podcast, we'll listen to a little bit. The links to the podcast and also to the YouTube channel that they have is down below in the description. So, okay, so here we go. I wrote my first book, and I was in a Facebook room, and a woman, I met a woman named Stephanie Ling Churchill. It's either Churchill Ling or Ling Churchill. I think Churchill is her maiden name and Ling is her married name. She writes under, I think, Stephanie Churchill. And Stephanie, if you're watching this, please forgive me if I don't have this down right. She did my cover for Rampage on the River, and she did the cover for Perils of Perryville. And very early on, I think she's friends with Matthew Harvey. Matthew Harvey, if you don't know who he is, he's really big in the historical fiction world. He's written The Wolf of Wessex. He's got a series called the Bernicia Chronicles. Am I right? He's also got another series out called Time for Swords. And he's a really nice guy. And anyway, she had shared the cover that she did for me with a link to my book, which was very nice of her. And he's friends with her, and he shared it too. And I was like, oh my God, this big famous writer from Britain shared my, and I'm a brand new writer. And we became friends ever since. And then he's got a partner named Stephen A. McKay, who's also a very well-known, very famous writer. He's from Scotland. He's done the Forest Lord series. He's got a Robin Hood series. It's very good. I read the first one. He's got a series about a druid, the bard, and he's got a series about that. He's got some standalone novels, and he also got signed. He's an independent. He's been an independent like me. They both were, but he got signed to a big publishing house, and he's done a trilogy about Alfred the Great. And by the way, the first one has been published. It's got great reviews. I bought it because it was down to $1.99. I'm going to read it. Part 2 is coming out July the 4th, and so I'm going to try to read the book 1 of that and review it before it comes out, before part 2 comes out on the 4th. I'm a slow reader, so I don't know if I'll get that done. Anyway, I became friends with both those guys through. Oh, someone knocking? Through Okay, keep an eye on my dad. He's right on the other side of the glass wall. Um, and my sister's floating around here somewhere. Anyway, uh, they about 2 years ago they started a podcast called Rock Paper Swords, and I don't know exactly the verbiage, but they say something along the lines: it's all things historical, action, adventure, fiction, whether it's novels, movies, or video games. And they talk about rock and roll too, because they're both like Steven's like a heavy. To say he's a heavy metal guitarist would be selling him short. He's basically a composer. He plays the guitar. He's a virtuoso guitar player. Plays the bass. He also creates. He writes music. He can sing it. He can do the parts. He does harmony. So he's basically a composer, producer. He's an amazing musical talent. Matthew is a singer and a very good singer. He's got a very good rock and roll voice. And so anyway, they had this podcast called Rock Paper Swords, and they were going to do like historical fiction. I'm like, oh my god, I totally want to be on the show. Within a few weeks of doing it, they got Bernard Cornwell on there. And if you don't know who Bernard Cornwell is, Bernard Cornwell is to historical fiction what Stephen King is to horror. Bernard Cornwell, even the most popular historical fiction writers are people who grew up worshiping Bernard Cornwell. Bernard Cornwell is the top tier. He is um, the Tolkien, but Tolkien is the fantasy. That is who Bernard Cornwell is. And Cornwell wrote the novels that the Last Kingdom on Netflix is based off of. Although the Netflix series, I don't think is a good representation because they went so far from the original written material. He wrote the Sharp series, which was my entry drug into him. And those are fantastic. Those are like Napoleonic War. It's about um, a British soldier fighting against the French during like the early 1900s. And once you get Bernard Cornwell on your podcast, there's really there you can't go any higher than that, right? So you got to come down to people like me. No, but when they had him on there, first of all, I was blown away. I was like, wow, because I knew both of them were a big deal, but the fact that they got Bernard Cornwell on their show, I was like, okay, I got no chance of being on this show. I'm nobody. So I kept quiet, and even though they've been very friendly and very helpful to me too, both of them, I've been able to reach out to them and get advice, and they've been very kind, and I try not to abuse that. And not long ago, I got contacted by a literary agent, and um, on LinkedIn, and she was the real deal. I get a lot. I get a lot of scammers. I got a lot of would be. There's a lot of failed authors who get into like coaching and doing marketing, instead of writing books and trying to sell their own shit. And so I'm very cautious. But no, I looked her up. She was the real deal, and she was really nice. We talked. But I reached out to Matthew and I said, I got a literary agent, and we're going to meet tomorrow. And can you? Because I know Matthew and Stephen both have been independents like me, and they got signed by publishing houses, and so I wanted to know what to expect and what would be a fair deal and what would not be a fair deal, so that I at least have some kind of idea of like how much is an advance, or what does a contract, what does a contract look like. Um, and Matthew got back to me right away and he said, "Hey, let's have a Zoom meeting tomorrow and we'll talk." And I mean, it was very kind of him. We had never spoken to each other. We interacted through like Facebook and Twitter. And he was very honest with me. He was very helpful. He was very sharing and open, and I really appreciate it. It was a great favor. 2 days later, he got back to me, and I have a feeling that he spoke to his partner Stephen A. McKay, who they share that show with, and they have they put out a book together, a book on writing itself, kind of like Stephen King's on writing. And Matthew was like, "Would you be interested in coming on our show?" I almost died because it was. I'll tell you this. This is how much it means to me. I don't know what to even hope for now. Because I really wanted to be on the podcast. And is it going to create a bunch of sales for me? I don't know, but it's very validating that these two guys, they're they're big. If you go, especially if you're in the UK and you walk into Waterstones, which is like Borders or Barnes and Nobles in the United States, you're going to see their books, hardcovers with dust leaves. Um, and then they asked me, and they've had people like Simon Scarrow and Griff Husker and Bernard Cornwell on that show. And so when they said, I mean, first of all, would you like to be on a show? 1000% yes. Thank you. Please. So, and then everything was set up. We set a date, and then it was it was supposed to be was it early May? Yeah, I think it was supposed to be May 2nd. And then Matthew got back to me. He's like, "Hey, I'm so sorry. I have jury duty. Can we set it back another week?" I'm like, "Yeah, no problem. Absolutely. I understand that." Well, that's what my father. That's just condensation. I'm not spilling whiskey on me. It's condensation on my whiskey. I swear to God. I am drunk, but I'm not that bad. Um, I said, no problem. Well, then my father's health started declining, and it got to the point where I had to like, my dad called me. My dad, who's very stoic, very German, um, called me at like 10 o'clock in the morning one day and said, "I need you here right now." And I said, "Okay." And within 2 hours, I was driving to Florida. It took me about 14 hours to get there. And little, with my dad so tough, he thought he fell. He thought he pulled a groin muscle, broke his hip. And he was already struggling. I won't go into everything, but physically and emotionally, because we've had a very terrible, terrible tragedy in our family that happened around Thanksgiving last year. A horrible one, unpredictable um, tragedy that's far worse than any kind of the physical ailments he's going through. Anyway, I go too far with that. So I got in the car and I came immediately down, and and I had this interview where I have you've seen my setup in Tennessee. I have a semi-professional microphone. I have studio lights, all that kind of stuff. Well, I told my dad, I said, okay, I go, if it's unavoidable, that's okay, but I really need to keep this appointment. And he's like, absolutely. And so anyway, I did the interview here. But now my dad, who refused to go to the hospital, finally acquiesced. I can't even say things right. I'm sorry, I'm drunk. He agreed to go, and we took him to the hospital. There's my sister. Come on out here. Come on out here. Come on. Come on. Okay, we're live.
Who are you talking to?
I'm talking to my audience, and this is my sister, my beautiful sister. Now, we grew up together, and I love you too. Michonne's a big reader too, and one of the reasons why I read and write is because I had a big sister who was a reader, and yeah, that's my beautiful sister. So I said, I got it. If we're able to do this. Well, it turned out that at first my dad refused to go to the hospital, but he had enough friends and family that loved him and said, "Larry, you have to go." And he went, and it turned out to be surgery and all that kind of stuff. So I was able to come home and his empty, this house here, and do the interview. And I was really nervous about it. But I gotta say, like Steven and Matthew, they're just such regular guys. I mean, they really are. They're funny. Um, they have great person. They have great TV personalities. I mean, so many authors and writers are not good interpersonal. A lot of them are weird. They're a lot of them are have social, and that's most of them. But it turns out that myself, Matthew, and Stephen are all three like we're not just authors, performers. We're comfortable talking on camera. We're comfortable talking in front of people. We're all musicians. We've all performed live in front of people. So it was a fantastic. Hello, Calico Cat. That's my good friend Lloyd. So I'm glad to have you here, Lloyd. By the way, if you hadn't heard the earlier part, Lloyd, I just want you to know. By the way, everybody, check out Lloyd Elmore Jr. He's all his books are available on Amazon. It's spelled just exactly what you think. Lloyd is one L, Loyd, Elmore, Elmore Jr. I always get him mixed up with uh, Leonard. Now I can't think of the other guy's name because Lloyd's a bigger deal to me. Leonard, Lloyd, what's the other guy's name? I can't remember. But anyway, Lloyd, I just want to tell you that I listened to Stephen King's On Writing, and my God, it's already changed my writing. Like even today, I was writing the Battle of Speecheren, and I'm like dropping all my adjectives and trying to write it the way Stephen King would write it. All right. So anyway, yeah, I did the I did the podcast. I was nervous. There was no reason to be. Stephen and Matthew are just such great, easy guys to talk to. We ran out of time because they tried to keep it under an hour. I think the podcast turned out to be like an hour and 20 minutes, and they like we definitely want to have you back. They're like we didn't even get through all our questions, which is great because um, hopefully we can time it out so that when the French Fiasco comes out, which is probably going to be early next year, maybe I can get back on and talk about it there. So I'm not going to bore you guys with playing any of it. I think I've created enough content. I mean, we're a half hour to this. I would encourage you to check out the links down below in the description, and you can see there's a link to you can listen to it on Spotify, you can listen to it on iTunes, and then Elmore Leonard. Thank you. This is Calico Jack, by the way, is Lloyd, and Lloyd. If you want to, and if you don't, it's okay. But you can come on. So all you have to say is, "I want the link," and I'll send you the link. But I understand if you don't, and I completely understand. But so yeah, you can listen to it there. You can also listen to it on YouTube, so you don't have to leave YouTube. You can go right to the YouTube channel as well. It's exactly the same thing, which I think is really smart. And I'll tell you a little bit about my own marketing, and because all of this, they say that in marketing and advertising, there's like 7 touch points before someone buys your product. So you want them to see it. You want to get in front of them. So you have to think things out. So now I'm constantly running Amazon ads on on Amazon, right? In the UK and the US for book number 1. That's constant. When I was invited on the show, I did kind of keep it a secret, but I hinted at it to the people who are paying attention to me, like on the YouTube channel and things like that. But I didn't want to say it because I wanted to make sure it was really going to happen. Once I did the recording, I made sure with them before I shared anything about it because I didn't want to say, "Hey, I'm going to be on Rock Paper Swords," and then like, "Yeah, you sucked. We're not going to put you on there." So I didn't say anything about it until I got the so. Then I put out I recorded. I'm a fiddle player. If you guys didn't know, I played the theme music to it, and I put that out, and I let everybody know I'm going to be on it. So that's the beginning, teasing everybody about it. Then when it came out on Friday, I shared it everywhere. Okay, and then yesterday on Saturday, I wrote a blog post and I put that out on my WordPress, and I've already gotten likes on that. And I took that blog post and just converted it to an email and sent it out to my email list. By the way, if you're listening, there's a link to my email list. You just click the link, put your email in there. I promise you, I won't sell it to anybody, your information. I won't spam you. You're just going to get emails from me about when my stuff's on special, when I'm going to make a public appearance, when I have a new thing out, if I'm on a podcast, that kind of stuff. So I put I put an email out and a blog post out yesterday. Today, I'm doing the live stream, which I've shared to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and um, uh, LinkedIn. And then probably after that, I'll stop talking about it. 'Cause I don't want to. There's a certain. It's more of a field than a science, but you don't want to over. You don't want to um, wear out your audience, I guess is a good way to say it. And that's it. Okay, so what's new? Couple things. So first of all, my job outside of writing understands that I'm here taking care of my father, who is in hospice, and he may live another 20 minutes. He may live another 20 years. We don't know. And, I mean, if it's 20 years, I'm not going to be living down here forever. Once he starts golfing, then he's not going to need me anymore. So I have decided that as a son, that this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take care of my dad, and I got enough savings where it ain't easy, but I'm going to be able to go without working side jobs to pay the bills. So Laura's up in Nashville, kind of taking care of some of my stuff. She's going to come down here at some point to see me. But it gives me a strange opportunity, and that is, okay, well, if I can truly do nothing else other than be here, be like right now, see, I'm looking at my father, because if anything happens, I can immediately, now my sister's here too right now, because he could go in a minute, the truth is. And hopefully, and she's worried that that's going to happen, she's not going to be here, but hopefully we're not riding the line that much, but still, one of us is always an eye shot. Okay. It gives me a strange opportunity. I can't do anything other than take care of my father, then I should be able to pick up my production of writing and spending more time than just doing nothing but writing. I can't do fiddle gigs, practicing my fiddle every day, but I can't book stuff. All I can do is stay in this house, and either Michonne, my sister's here, or I'm here. And at some time, Michonne is going to have to go back up to Michigan because she's got a lot of responsibility. She's very political. She's involved in one of the presidential candidates' campaigns, and she has to be up in Michigan to do that. By the way, it's the person I'm not going to vote for, but that doesn't matter. And that's what I love about my family is that we're mixed politically, and we all love each other, and we don't care. Like, go vote for you, and they tolerate my weird ways, and I tolerate their weird ways, and it doesn't matter. And by the way, if you are, one of my friends, if you're one of my readers, I don't care who you vote for. I just care that you vote, even if it's for the other person. I don't care who you sleep with, as long as you love that person and you're kind to them. And I don't care who you pray to, as long as that doesn't keep you from not liking people who pray to other things or don't pray at all. That's all I'm asking, man. That's all I got, man. That's all I'm asking. And I'm never going to preach to you. I'm never going to tell you to vote for. It ain't my place, man. I'm very political, and I have spiritual beliefs, but it ain't my place to tell you what you should think and who you should vote for, all that kind of stuff. Okay, enough of that. I'm done. Anyway, so what's going on with me? I am uh, writing chapter 9 or 10 of the French Fiasco. I'll have to say I had a little bit of I went through a little bit of a writer's block, but I had a breakthrough. I'm writing a battle scenes, and even my detractors, people that wear D on their T-shirts and they drive tractors. I got that joke from Ethan Van Sciver. Detractors, even my critical reviews always say that my battle scenes are accurate and good. They just don't like everything else. I'm writing a battle scene and I'm feeling it. It's great. Like the Prussians have to run across the field underneath like withering French fire. The French are ensconced on a ridgetop. The Prussians, the Prussian infantrymen are taking shelter at the foot of the hill where the French guns, the artillery can't tilt down enough to get them. And also there's a rise that protects them from rifle fire. And I think they're safe, but here comes the heavy French cavalry that's about to fuck them up. You know, these are guys wearing like the breastplates and the helmets and with their heavy sabers and pistols, and it looks like the end for these Prussians. But off in the distance of the Prussian, the Krupp's guns, which were a technological advance. They were like breech loaders, and they were extremely accurate. They had about 1,000 more meters of range than the French guns, and they decimated, which is really sad because first of all, the Cuirassiers were any country that had Cuirassiers, which are like heavy cavalry. These are the most magnificent. They're big men, big horses, heavily armored. These are the last of like the Middle Ages. These are men and horses that are bred and armored and trained to do cavalry charges and to break up infantry formations. So there's so just as they're about to sweep off the German um, Prussians are Germans, the German infantrymen up the foot of the hill, the German artillery decimates this charge, and I think that Franco-Prussian War is the last. There, I mean, even today there are modern. I think the French have one regiment of cuirassiers, but instead of wearing armor and being on horses, they're mechanized infantry and like armored personnel carriers and tanks and things like that. So it's really interesting because a lot of these things translate into modern warfare, and I'm very interested in modern warfare. I keep up on it all the time. I was in the military myself. I was in the army. Um, so I wrote that today. The other thing is I have a friend named Philip Lee. Philip is a right. He has written mostly nonfiction Civil War stuff and published with a regular commercial publisher. He's now publishing independently like me. Um, he found me in a forum, a Civil War forum. And what's interesting is I have a nonfiction book that says the Civil War was about slavery. He's got a book that says it wasn't about slavery. um, he and I are very different when it comes to like our beliefs and philosophies. But he's a good guy, and he had reached out to me a long time ago to help him with. He's probably a better writer than me, but I've helped him with technical things, especially um, like marketing and things like that. So he knew that I was coming down here to help my dad, and he asked me if on one of my trips down to Florida I could stop. My dad lives in Estero, which is like southwest corner of Florida, near like between Fort Myers and Naples. Phil lives just north of Tampa, and he's like, one of your trips. He goes, "Will you come spend about 6 hours with me? I'll pay for your food. I'll put you up in a hotel, and I want you to sit down and talk to and walk me through Amazon ads. That's yeah, absolutely. I've had a hard time scheduling that because usually when I come this way, it's an emergency. I got to get down here right away, take care of my father. And I'm going back north. Well, I don't want to spend any extra time. I want to get back north because I don't know how quickly I have to come back down and take care of my father. So I don't want to, to add an extra stop and spend the night. So now I'm down here, and I sent him an email. I said, "Look, I'm down here. I'm gonna be here for a while. My sister's here, so she can look after my dad if I'm gone. So I'm going Tuesday. So we're gonna spend Tuesday together. We're gonna sit down, and I want to look at his Amazon ads. And I'm just gonna help him, get to that. And that's about it. I stopped about 3 years ago. I stopped looking for fiddle gigs because I was getting phone calls, and everything I've done for the last 3 years is because people called me, whether it's fiddle gigs or it's book signing stuff. I just respond. I don't look for it. And after about 3 years, I've ran out of gigs. I got the next thing I have, honestly, in my books is I'm doing Christmas at the Saunders. There'll probably be Christmas at Master Station too, but that won't get booked till later on. But Mark and Yvonne Saunders, they are Santa and Mrs. Santa, and it's a really beautiful thing. They bought a house out in Smithville. That's where the Smithville Jamboree is, and um, and they're about 10 years older than me, which means they're old. And he's he's a big guy, big barrel chest, big belly, big gray beard. He's Santa. She's Mrs. Claus, and they turn their manufactured home into like the North Pole, and it's amazing. It's I mean, it's like walking into another world. It's like Christmas puked all over it, and I don't mean that in a bad way. They make all this food, and then they open it up to everybody, everybody, all the kids, and we had Mexicans kids that didn't speak English, black kids. We have, kids that are, immigrant families. We have kids that have been living there, although, their families, fathers fought for the Confederate or great grandfathers. It's a beautiful thing. And it's just open. They don't ask for any money. They just provide Christmas for these kids, and these kids who will never go to a mall. I was a kid growing up in Detroit. We went to one of the various malls, and I got sat on Santa's lap and asked for whatever I wanted. Usually it was swords. Well, they give that experience to impoverished kids, and they pay me. It's an hour and a half drive out there, but they come out there and play Christmas tunes on my fiddle, and it makes me feel like I'm not as bad of a person as I think I am sometimes. So it's very nice. So that'll be this Christmas. That's all I got. That's it. So anyway, I'm gonna sign out. That's it for this one. I'll come back out. I'm reading Ethan Bale's Hawker and the King's Jewel, so I'll probably do a review on that. So that's probably next Sunday. And then I have Angus Donald's is very interesting. He's writing a novel. He's writing a trilogy, and the trilogy is three novels. And then he's breaking the novels into episodes. So he's publishing. He's a traditionally published, commercially published author, but he's doing this independent. And what he's doing is he's putting out each. He's as he's writing the novels, he's putting out each like he's putting them out in like 20,000 word episodes, and then 4 to 5 episodes makes a novel. And then once he finishes the novel, then he puts it out as a novel, and then there's going to be three. But he puts them out for like $1.25 in the U.S., 99 pence in the U.K., 20,000 word, and just an average novel is anywhere to be like 80,000 words plus. I thought it was a very interesting thing. It's a King Arthur story, starting with kind of an origin into how he becomes King Arthur. I've been reading it and reviewing it, and he's really great. Every time I review it, he shares it, and he's a big author. He's a author. He's a big deal. So that'll take me about a week to read, and then I'm gonna try to read Stephen A. McKay's "The Heathen Horde," which is book one of the trilogy he's writing for a publisher. It's his first contract, and so I really want to support him to make sure that that contract with a big publisher is successful, so he gets the next contract. So his book is going to come out July the 4th. So that's book two of the trilogy. So I'm going to try to read book one and then do my review of it just before book two comes out. And I think that'd be well placed. Matthew Harvey, who's his friend on the podcast, he has a book called The Dark Frontier, which is a Western, which I thought was great because here's a guy, he's English, he writes about early British Dark Ages, who finally like breaks out of the mold and writes a Western. And so I wanted to read it that on just on that alone. I told him I was very interested and I was going to buy it when it came out so I could read it. He's like, "Well, I'll give you an advanced copy." Okay. So I got a free book. So I said, "Okay, well, I will review it." So if you look through my videos, you can see my review, and you can also find my review on Goodreads, and you can also find my review on my blog post. And once the book comes out, I will also copy and paste that review into Amazon. So that's it. I love you guys. If you are a reader and you have authors out there that you love, like Lloyd Elmore Jr., for example, and you buy their book and you read it, please give them 5-star reviews because we got a lot of jackasses that give us like 1 or 2-star reviews for stupid reasons. It's to balance that out. If you just give the stars, that's great. But if you could give the stars and then write a few lines like, "I loved it, couldn't put it down," that's great too. We live and die by our reviews and by our stars because remember, we are all made of stars. All right. My God, it's full of stars. What movie is that from? Put it in the comments below. All right. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you next week.